structures are much more complex, and the American portion of, I don't know, 8–9%, something like this every year, that's usually going to the US, can be added on top of that. And that now makes critical mass, at least in the Atlantic basin. There is no such thing as a milk run anymore. You can't connect A to B anymore and have a stable price, because what you need in your market is a market price. Otherwise, you cannot survive. A couple of things changed significantly in the contracts. One of them is, for example, the destination clause. That's a staple of LNG SPAs, aren't they? I haven't seen an LNG SPA where there isn't some kind of destination clause inside saying where you can bring the LNG, tying the contract to a certain location, everything. Now, question, is it really useful in a traded environment? I can see the use of it still in the Asia Pacific, where you still have a non-traded environment, where you still have monopolies on the other side. But in the Atlantic, where you have to trade your portfolio, what the hell is the destination clause good for? It was here intended originally by the sellers in order to protect them from a nasty buyer bringing a cargo to somewhere else and influencing somehow the market he perceives to have over there, price-wise, volume-wise, whatever. It never really worked in the past, but we didn't really find out, because the destination clause just avoided anything like this to happen. In reality, in a traded world, it doesn't work, because a traded world has its own mechanisms. We are a pipeline-driven world here in the Atlantic Basin. We are not an LNG-driven world. That means pipeline gas will determine what happens to price and to volume plays, not the LNG. The LNG is a fringe play over here, and it will suffer the consequences. The pipeline-driven market is slapping on top of that. Full stop. With that in mind, destination clause in a contract in the Atlantic Basin is about as useful as this sign over here. Serves for nothing. One of the abilities you need to build if you're building up your portfolio in the Atlantic Basin is the sync capability. Why a sync capability? Very simple. Because when you build up your portfolio, you probably want to trade. You probably want to take advantage of all those nice things that are out there. Very nice 3-week spike in Brazil. Want to send a cargo, for example, to Italy when they need it in March. You want to do all those nice things, or for example, something to Spain when they have a dry season over there. Of course you want to do that. If you're an FOB buyer and you have the cargo already on the vessel, you would like to log in some nice windfall profits. On the other side, you need to have a sync possibility. If you're building up a portfolio of LNG and you don't have a place where you can bring it in the as a last resort, if everything goes wrong and this place where you bring it actually keeps you safe, you're in trouble. You have a real problem. There's a couple of players out there. They're buying LNG. They're building up LNG portfolios, supply side, and they don't really have performing sinks. Now, some of them have thought, okay, sink, that's America. So we're building up a sink position in North America, in the Gulf of Mexico. Is it really useful? The problem is, as long as Henry Hub was $6, $7, $8, $9, that was a great position. Wonderful sink position, because no matter where how many cargoes you bring into Henry Hub, it will always cover your financing. With Henry Hub where it is today, it means sometimes even below $4. That's a totally different proposition. It means when you sink a cargo, you might not even be able to cover your own financing in the project. And that gives you a real problem, and it gives not only you a problem, but it gives lenders a problem as well, because they're getting nervous. What are prices? What is a good price you can put in a contract? I mean, in the past, you have used usually the pipeline-driven mechanisms you have found in the market, and you have copied them into LNG. Exception, Asia, because in Asia there is no pipeline market. They developed this JCC mechanism. Now, let's make abstraction of JCC. Asia is its own business model. I still keep here firmly in the Atlantic, because I think what we're doing here in the Atlantic is a little bit the bellwether function we will have for a little bit the rest of the world. It will take some time until the whole thing swaps over into really countries like Japan, but I think we will see mechanisms like this in countries like China very, very soon, because they have a lot of pipeline supply as well, just the infrastructure is missing. But what's a real price? What's the price you can pay in the LNG contract? One thing you have to get used to, there are certain things out there that you cannot do. If you are one-legged, because you had an accident and you lost one leg. You might have all the motivation and all the intention in the world to become a runner, an Olympic runner. You might say, it's my life dream to bring up the Olympic torch and light the fire. Well, keep on dreaming, because with one leg you won't ever be able to do it, except if somebody carries you up there. So, for you, the same thing holds true. You are a player with certain characteristics. There are certain things you can do, and there are certain things you can certainly never do. Get used to this. When you see a situation, and you know in your gut this is something you cannot accept, don't try to find a fudge, somehow to make it look nice, and then present it to your board and get it through. But in your gut, you know this is a contract that will maybe not kill you, but cause a lot of damage in your portfolio just because you want to log in your bonus. If your management lets you do that, it's very bad management. So, in price, it's the same thing. If you're approaching Qatar and tell them, I want LNG supply from you, and the Qataris tell you, okay, I give you LNG supply, but I want crude parity, and you cannot take that because your market doesn't give you crude parity, you will not have Qatari supplies, full stop. That's it. It's true for many other things as well in LNG. If you have a price out there that you cannot pay, you cannot buy LNG, full stop. Get used to it. One of the other questions that you're facing when you're structuring your LNG deals is, what's a proper risk-reward distribution? Now, this is a staple of normal business life for the last 200 years. I think the whole thing was already thought over by Adam Smith, worked over a zillion times by I don't know how many scholars. And for the rest of the economic world, this holds true. Nobody would ever think about doing business without actually properly distributing risk and reward. Why is it not happening in LNG? Well, it starts to happen, but it's slow because it has never been done before. There are no really good benchmarks out there, and people actually don't want to change what's existing. They take the old SPAs. I mean, have you seen those contracts? There is a Nigerian SPA out there with an American player. It has been concluded somewhere in the mid-90s. Everybody has it on its bookshelf. And everybody takes this contract down and says, okay, what's happening in this SPA? That's bullshit. That's a history book. Throw it away. I've shredded mine. I don't even look in that anymore. Because the problem is it avoids thinking. You need to think yourself what you can do in today's world, not somewhere in the mid-90s when business environments were completely different. You need to think about what kind of risk you can take.